right, good evening, everyone, and thank you, everyone, for joining us in person and online. I'd like to call this meeting to order. So, Madam Clerk, if we could roll call, please.
Schultz.
Here.
Latta.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Hallbaker.
Here.
Ganfield.
Here.
Chrisman. Here. Dunn. Here. All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And if all who are willing and able, could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. Okay, so if we could have a motion to approval minutes
So moved. Second.
and voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Madam Clerk, any agenda revisions?
I have no agenda revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And we'll now move on to public forum. So speakers here will have 1 minute, will have an opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics relevant to city business. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak tonight on any topics? If it's particular to a specific item we have on the agenda, we'll have that later on when we have public comment for that agenda item. Otherwise, any other public comments? Just name and address, or name and city for the record, please.
Michael Blackwell. I'm from Cedar Falls. I would like to suggest the City Council and relevant administrative staff of Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Des Moines and West Des Moines, and Davenport get together not only to address the racial disparities to which we seemingly have become used to, but also a challenge to the administration of Governor Reynolds and the state legislature to stop ignoring the serious blight against our state. Needless to say, it is very disturbing and grossly irresponsible that 3 metro areas in our state are objectively characterized among the top 15 worst for Black Americans in the country. And no concerted effort by the state to better the quality of life of Black Iowans is developed and implemented. For example, when there's federal money to reduce hunger among children in the summer, and the governor refuses it and sarcastically states that households will misuse the funds, we need to speak up and share our repulsion over that decision and insist she take the funds. Another example is the effort to cancel DEI programs in a state which is clearly discriminatory towards protected classes of people. It is ludicrous for a state comprised of approximately 88% white people to deny equal opportunity to those in the minority. It's dastardly, cruel, and unconscionable. If we do not join together with other targeted communities of color and their leadership to insist on policies, programs, and services to decrease such institutional racism, we are complicit in the denial of the people to pursue life, liberty, and happiness, and make mockery of claiming the end of the Pledge of Allegiance, where it says, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With unity there is strength. If we could come together with other metro areas to organize a substantive, comprehensive, and meaningful plan to put forward to the state government and legislature to mitigate decades of deliberate racist neglect, we will elevate our due diligence to service to the communities involved and benefit the entire state. I feel that this is our moral obligation And as long as we delay that, of course, justice will be denied. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Blackwell. It's wonderful to see you, Rosemary. Name and city for the record, please.
Good evening, Rosemary Beach, Western Home Communities. Welcome, you new faces up there. I hope you're smiling when you get a little longer in this whole system going on, and you asked for it. Remember, you asked for it. I would like to suggest that we look into the blue zones again. We did them a long time ago, and we had Dan Buettner here. This came out from the library, which started me on this subject. And he evidently has written this new book, which I have asked for at the library, but so far somebody else is reading it, and I haven't gotten into it. I'd like to have us to assess with the good thoughts of what we did. Did it do us any good? Could we do it again? And it was really fun. The businesses took hold, the people took hold, the little kids took hold, the schools took hold. We all had just one big thought. And John Cruz was behind it at that time. He was really into it. And I'd like to know if we really ended up, I think we could make a good story for what happened to a city when it did attend to all this. Did it do you some good? We ended up in Des Moines, and we had all kinds of stuff going for us. And I just think it's one of those things I think we could have a good pull together with the whole city again. And I'd like to see that happen. So I'm just suggesting it. I'm sure Dan Buettner would be delighted to come with $1.95 if that's we could afford him. But the story's got to be just the same, or has he changed it? Our other places are better off than we are. Anyhow, put that in your back pocket. You can talk about it. And I'm still looking for a handicapped bathroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. Any other public comments for tonight? Just name and record or name and address for the record, please.
I'm Pastor Larry Stummy of St. Paul Lutheran Church in Cedar Falls, and I live on Lois Lane in Waterloo. And after hearing Dr. Blackwell's presentation, I just wanted to second what he's saying. In 2019, when that report, 24/7 report came out, I was with some friends, and we looked into it and checked with some of the other cities, and we noticed that Minneapolis, St. Paul, was high on the list like we were in Waterloo, Cedar Falls, and they decided that this was something that had been growing all the years and it wasn't going to be corrected in a short time, and so they established Minneapolis, St. Paul 2040. And a commission to look into all these problems and to deal with them and to muster all the support that could be done. And that's what I think Dr. Blackwell was asking, that we put together the resources that we have, not only us, but we find that the other cities in Iowa that are directly named, Des Moines, West Des Moines, and the Quad Cities have the same problem. And if we work together, and use our resources, and it's not going to be an overnight thing, but it's going to take a long term with expertise and a lot of money. But tonight, I wasn't coming to speak to that. I wanted just a kind of a thing that I think should be brought to everybody's attention. Maybe you know, but on February 1st, we're having the second annual George Washington Carver Day declared in Iowa. This is a day to honor this outstanding individual who had ties with Iowa. He was the first graduate to receive his master's, black to receive a master's degree from Iowa State. And he's also, there's a school in Waterloo on just south of the hospital there called George Washington Carver Academy, where they train young people and where Iowa State has a greenhouse there. And I hope that this celebration of, which is the second one, it was declared last year by the governor, and it's in the state calendar, that becomes part of the school year and part of the school emphasis on this great American and his ties with us. I'd just like to introduce you just briefly so you get a glimpse of who this man really is. Carver was born on a farm in Diamond, Missouri, and the exact date of his birth is unknown, but it's probably thought to be in January or June of 1864. 9 years prior to that, Moses Carver, a white farmer owner, purchased George Carver's mother, Mary, when she was 13 years old. The older Carver reportedly was against slavery, but needed help on his 240-acre farm. When Carver was an infant, he, his mother, and his sister were kidnapped from the Carver farm by one of the bands of slave raiders that roamed Missouri during the Civil War. They were resold in Kentucky. Moses Carver hired a neighbor to retrieve him after he was stolen, and his mother. But the neighbor only succeeded in finding George, whom he purchased by trading one of Moses's finest horses. Carver grew up knowing little about his mother or his father who had died in an accident before he was born. Moses Carver and his wife Susan raised young George and his brother James as their own and taught the boys how to read and write. James grew up his studies and focused on working in the fields with Moses. George, however, was a frail and sickly child who could not help with much work. Instead, Susan taught him how to cook, mend, embroider, do laundry and gardening, as well as how to concoct simple herbal medicines. At a young age, Carver took a keen interest in plants and experimented with natural pesticides, fungicides, and soil conditioners. He became known as the plant doctor. To local farmers, his ability to discern how to improve your farms was really appreciated.
30
That's
seconds.
a little glimpse of him, and I just wanted you to get a sense that this was a great human being, and and his celebration, I hope, will continue to grow in Iowa and our community. And if you ever have a chance, go and visit the school, because it's really a great school, and it's in his heritage. Thank you.
Thank you, Driver Summy. Any other public comments for tonight?
Mr. Mayor? Yeah. I realize College Hill is not on the agenda tonight, and I don't want to rehash the work session, but I just wanted to bring up, a few months ago, we have a safety walk on campus with some leaders, and students talk about things on campus or around that they're interested in or concerned about. One of those that we often hear about as a student government is lighting, West 23rd Street, Merner Avenue, Campus Street, College Street, those areas. There is good lighting, but there's some areas of the street where students who are walking home, it's dark very early in the night, maybe not great lighting in some of those areas, and only so much is on the university, and we've talked with the Board of Regents about possibly improving lighting, adding lighting, whatever that may look like. But I just wanted to bring that to the council's attention, see that it was on your radar as you look at the plan, as you look at development on the Hill. That's something we're hearing quite consistently from students. So thank you.
Yeah, too. Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, otherwise, we will move on to staff updates. Ron, any staff updates tonight?
We have a couple, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask Library Director Kelly Stern to come up and give a few updates on that, and then following that, Chase Schrage will actually give some updates on some snow removal efforts that will be going on this week.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to share with you. Some months ago, the City Council approved a contract for the library with Bywater Solutions, which is a company that helps libraries to implement open source software for their ILS, which stands for Integrated Library System. It's the software that libraries use to provide the catalog that the public uses to search for items. It also controls all of the back of house work that we do, patron management, cataloging, checkouts and check-ins and so forth. So our contract with our current company is up next month, and council approved a contract with this new company, Bywater Solutions, for their product that's called Aspen Koha. And one of the reasons that we're migrating to a new software system is because this system that we're moving to is created by and for librarians. A lot more intuitive. We're hearing from libraries that already have it, including Dubuque. And we think it's going to result in better service to patrons. So this week, tomorrow through Friday, our staff will be trained in this new software. Not everybody will be trained all 3 days, but Thursday morning, all of our library staff will be trained at the same time in the circulation basics. So the library will open at 2 o'clock that day so that we can all be trained in the morning. So we'll be open from 2 to 6 that day. And I just wanted to share that with you. We're excited about this, and this software is going to result over time. After the implementation, we'll be paying half what we used to pay for our annual service contract. So not only is it better software, but it's less expensive. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. And Chase?
Just wanted to provide a brief reminder about we are invoking a snow emergency ordinance that will begin at 8 p.m. Tomorrow, Wednesday, January 17th, until 7 a.m. on Thursday, January 18th, and that is for the purpose of snow removal in the downtown Parkade and College Hill areas. There will be parking restrictions in those designated areas, and I believe all the signs have been posted as of yesterday, and all the streets that will be affected are up there on the slide there. So.
Any questions, anyone on council? Okay, thank you, Chase. All right, I was moving on to special order of business. So item number 2, public hearing on the proposed FY24 to FY29 capital improvements program. We have a motion to receive and file proof of publication.
So moved. Second.
And voice vote, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Okay, and then Madam Clerk, any written communications?
I have no written communications on file.
All right, we'll open up any staff comments on this item.
Sure, I can just give a couple comments.
Go for it.
So I just want to let everyone know that the CIP, their capital improvements program, was presented at committee on January 2nd. The CIP does have 217 projects on it, totaling $469 million. The CIP that was included in the packet did have the 2 changes in it that were discussed at committee, adding the extra funds to the Unidome project and then adding the Highway 57 and Union project onto it. So again, it's presented tonight. Just a reminder, the CIP is a plan, and it's just one of our kind of next step in our budget process.
Thank you, Jen. Any public comments on this item tonight? Anyone public who wish to speak on it? Otherwise, we will move to for a resolution approving and adopting the FY 2024 FY 29 capital improvements program. Do we need a motion? So roll call on this.
Second.
And then I'll just voice vote for this item.
Roll call.
Roll call vote for this.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that moves us to item number 3, resolution declaring an official intent under Treasury Resolution 1.1502 to issue debt to reimburse the city for certain original expenditures paid in connection with specified projects. Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion to move, approve. Second.
And roll call vote.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And moves us to number 4, resolution approving and adopting the American Rescue Plan Act allocation relative to providing continued relief from the public health and economic impacts of COVID-19 public health emergency. Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
And roll call vote.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Moves on to number 5. So a public hearing on proposed amendment to land use map by changing the designation from low density residential use, greenways and floodplain use, and neighborhood commercial and mixed use to low density residential use, and adjust the greenways and floodplain use of property located north of Aldrich Elementary School and south of West Green Hill Road. Do we have a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
Second.
And voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And then any written communications?
Yes,
Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, we have received one written communication, and it has been placed in front of the City Council.
Thank you. And do we have any public comments for this item? Okay. Otherwise, we'll close the public hearing for that. And we'll look,
Mr. Mayor,
Based on this written.
staff comments.
Oh,
oh, sorry, excuse me, I did skip staff comments. Yes, Rob, any staff comments? Sorry, JD.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for this opportunity. So, yes, I have a small presentation in front of you, and then I want to note that item 5 is the land use map amendment, and item 6 is the rezoning. I will be giving a presentation for the entire project as it relates to each other. So, yeah, 1 second. Yep, so the first one will be discussing the land use map amendment and rezoning for Panther West. As you can see, this area is south of West Green Hill Road and north of Aldrich Elementary School. Just a bit of background on this project. About the green hatched area, as you can see on your map, is about 14.18 acre parcel. That was rezoned from A1 to MU with an MU plan to create a multi-use development in 2016, which would consist of residential and professional offices. And then the blue hatched area you can see is about 40 acres that was rezoned from A1 and R1 in February of 2019. So those were the two things that are already done on this land, but however, there was no approved plat or anything, which is why we have this request. So the applicant requests here to rezone the entire 54.79 acres of land from R1 and MU to RP, Planned Residence District. And the other request is to amend the future land use map in city's comprehensive plan from neighborhood commercial and mixed use to low density residential use and modify the greenway and the floodplain use. And I want to note that the RP district, which is requested, requires submittal of a master plan and a development agreement along with the project. Starting with the land use map amendment, first thing I want to note is the proposed rezoning request is not consistent with the comprehensive plan and the future land use map, as you can see on your screen. The yellow area is basically the low density area. The pink area is the neighborhood commercial and mixed use area. And the green area you can see is the greenway and the floodplain boundary on our future land use map. A rezoning can only be approved if it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. So as I explained, these are the 3 different areas as noted on city's comprehensive plan. One thing I would want to highlight is the low density is usually used to emphasize single family development. The greenway and floodplain uses are usually for emphasizing the preservation of environmental sensitive area and also to develop them as crucial scenic corridors and possible incorporation into city's trail system. And the neighborhood commercial and mixed use emphasizes the development of low impact commercial uses and providing variety of neighborhood services and residential development in certain manner. So this is what our city's comprehensive plan states for the definition of all these 3 uses. Analysis on this is the subject property may not be ideal for having commercial uses because we have neighborhood serving uses in the surrounding areas. But there is a need for more residential development in the community, as you may all are aware about. And then it is important to keep a greenway buffer, as we discussed, between the floodplain area and the future developed area. I think that would be an area for a future trail, as we would be discussing in the next slides. So planning and zoning recommendation was changing the designation to low-density residential and adjusting the greenway and the floodplain use. As you can see, the image to the right would be the proposed change to the land use map in the comprehensive plan document. This will allow the buffer to exist with stream next to stream corridor, and also an enough space to establish a future public trail along that north edge of this proposed site. So the other part, which is the zoning, the proposal here is to rezone from R1 and MU to RP zoning district. RP zoning district basically allows establishment of multi-use integrated residential development, and it is usually proposed to promote the order development in the community. And RP district does allow flexibility in types of dwelling units, lot sizes, building heights, and setbacks. So those are that is the zoning which is being proposed here. This is the RP master plan on your screen that is being proposed at this time. As I mentioned earlier, RP zoning requires RP master plan and development agreement. So this is what the developer has proposed. The proposal is to develop the area with single-family dwellings. The exact number of lots will be determined at the platting level, but the setbacks proposed for this any building in this development would be 30 feet from the front, 25 feet from the front, and 20 feet from the on secondary frontage on corner lots, 5 feet side yard setback, and 30 feet of rear setback. So those would be the setbacks through which this development will be developed. Want to highlight the phasing. This development will be developed in 4 phases. I want to highlight a couple of street extensions. So with this development, there will be an extension of existing critical connections, including Arbors Drive, Ironwood Drive, and Richard Road extension into the proposed development. I know we have been talking about all this critical connections for a long time. This development would address those things in phase 1. So that's the purple arrow shows those are the critical connections that will be extended into this development and provide a necessary connection to the school as well as the Green Hill Road, and allow distribution of traffic both from the adjacent neighborhood as well as more ways to go to school and otherwise, and also facilitate bike and walking connections. Also with this development, the proposed Medellin Street, highlighted with a green arrow, will be extended westward to provide opportunity for future development to the west. So those are the critical piece on the RP master plan. RP requires development agreement. These are some of the highlights of the development agreement. That the development will be single family, will be developed in 4 phases. This would be the setbacks. The developer will be establishing a minimum 20-foot wide outlot along the entire north edge of the property, abutting Dry Run Creek, stream corridor, for a future public trail, which will be added at a later date, not by the developer, but the city. And then no direct driveway access will be allowed for any lots on West Green Hill Road. The developer has agreed to these conditions, and a signed agreement was in the packet for review. With that, planning and zoning at their November 21st meeting, on a vote of 5-0, recommended approval of this proposed land use map amendment and the rezoning subject to compliance with the master plan and the agreement. I have the representative of this case here to answer any questions, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, JD. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman.
JD, can you, and I apologize if it's in there and I missed it, regarding the buffer, how many feet, how much are we proposing to cut that buffer by?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, so I'll show you.
Give me an estimate, like feet or?
It's hard to tell. I think what we are doing is we are adding, so if you see this image to the north, you could see in some areas there is no greenway buffer, and then in some areas we have buffer. I don't know the exact feet, but it's probably over, I don't know, guess is probably over 100 feet. But I think what we are doing
Total?
is, yeah.
Okay.
But then we are proposing on the entire north edge instead of just one section.
So with that, I guess, and thank you. I hear a constant concern from folks and acknowledging that Cedar Falls is in desperate need of additional housing. But the concern that when we develop responsibly and that we are cognizant of our waterways and protecting them. And I know that there are measures in place for staff and engineering and everyone to do, make sure that we're not violating anything or doing the best that we can. But I guess my concern, and I just mainly want to, just bring it up and start a conversation if there needs to be, I'm not really for taking away from the original greenways and floodplain use designation. I like that buffer as a person who's actively cleaning the river annually with the nonprofit I'm involved in. The more buffer, the more grass, the better chance of keeping stuff out of the water and making its way. I mean, all roads lead to the river. And I think basic biology tells us we need clean water to live. So wanted to bring that up. I'm not really for that for sure. The changing from the current residential district and mixed use, as I'm going through things, and actually I'm glad Ms. Beach brought up the blue zones, because I remember the blue zones, and that I was excited for that time in Cedar Falls. And I don't know for sure if these things coincide when this original comprehensive and land use map was done, if it was about the same time. But one of the things, and I actually was looking it up, was the first of the 9 points of blue zone is called move naturally, which obviously can mean many things, but it was speaking of that when people live in environments that constantly nudge them to move, then they move without thinking. And I think that there are areas in our community that do that already. I understand that maybe this area, what we've built so far doesn't reflect that, but I don't think that we should forget that that may have been the purpose. And I understand that there's development and retail down the way on Green Hill, and obviously in other areas of town, but I don't know that that may have been the intention of that, and I could be wrong. Also, yes, single family is a great option, and there are folks that is an option for them, but that is not an option for many at the current cost. And I do know, because obviously people move out of maybe some of the houses they're living in now that are their first homes, and that may free up the market. But I guess those are my concerns, and I could be way out of whack, but I know we've made changes to comprehensive plans and land use maps before, but I just want to have that conversation with this group to see if that's maybe a concern for anyone else.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember.
That's where I was going with it too. This is the first of 3 votes for us, correct?
Well, so for this, we are just approving the
This
zoning
is just
change. We're not approving the actual
I don't
master
think
plan.
I need to research this a lot more, particularly with some of this correspondence from citizens. I want to dwell into a little bit more. So I'd ask that we postpone this. I guess, do I need to make a motion for that, or
Pick a meeting?
would be fine for the next meeting.
And just to answer your first question, Kevin, this would be the first of 3 readings
No, this is
to review it, or this is just the hearing it?
This is a resolution approving, so it's one vote approving the resolution.
Yep.
He's speaking about the future land use map amendment,
Right.
which is the first item to vote on, and then the rezoning is the second item, and it does take 3 readings.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember.
So to that, to not hold up process and to know that folks will have a time to weigh in, if we, this first item, if that was passed by council, it still would go to the rezoning, but are we still changing the land use map and we can't go back on that?
Correct. So if you approve the first one, then the land use map would be changed,
Okay.
and then the rezoning would be consistent with the land use map.
But then we'd have to vote on the rezoning.
Right,
Okay.
separately, and I would assume if the first item is not approved, then that makes the second item sort of moot, because it would be
Mr.
inconsistent.
Mayor.
We could not approve it.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Hotbaker.
So I assume, Councilman Schultz, that the motion actually ties the two items that we have, because obviously if we don't change the future land use map, then we can't change the zoning, right?
Yeah,
So,
correct.
I would second Councilman Schultz's motion to continue this hearing to the next council meeting.
Is there any additional information that you guys are looking for with that, in terms of us to bring back something, or are you looking for additional feedback from residents?
My intent is to meet with JD and Ron and gather some more information. I guess collectively, maybe there's something that I guess Dustin or Kelly, thoughts that you would have, or Aaron, anybody that I agree. It's not just that I'm going to come back in 3 weeks and go, all right, I've thought about it a little harder. It's going to be I want to speak to this residents that send the correspondence, and I want to walk that out there and look at these waterways. And we have had some people upset about some of the developments that we've done that didn't seem to pay as close attention to our environment as being perceived. So,
And Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember.
To kind of go off that, we're not saying we're against development of the area. I think we're just wanting to make sure we're being cautious of making a change to the, or at least in my mind, a change to the original plan, because I think many of us, especially in the last few months, have heard about that concern, and I think it's a valid concern. And anybody that's waterways are important, and the buffer, the grass to protect them is important.
So that's a question I wanted to ask too with this is this wanting to look at a broader conversation about the overall land use, or are you wanting to look at this specific project, or is there additional information? Because trying to make sure it's not something that every single project that comes up, we're going to want to ask about, let's review this more. Is there information just on the overall process you would like to look at?
Well, I guess I'm always willing to learn, and if I'm wrong in thinking the way I'm thinking, but I mean, I don't know that I'm always open to, if there's something I need to hear or learn, either way, I'm always open to that. But I mean, basic, being a farm kid, you kind of know what grass does, and it's intended to protect. And so, yes, if the question, I'm very hesitant to stray from the original reason, and unless there's a very good reason, and I don't know that I know the reason other than I'm assuming it's to have
more
bigger lots.
Yeah, or more lots.
I was going to clarify with JD if I can. So we're talking about keeping the greenway buffer. This kind of goes to Kelly's question earlier. Is this a significant reduction in the greenway, or are we just reallocating? Because I know we kind of cut it off there to a point where some of this has no greenway, and now we're changing it to allow that greenway. Can you just clarify the greenway changes?
So yes, as you can see, and sorry if I'm speaking again on this. So this is the proposed future land use change that we as a staff discussed, and the PNZ was okay with this making this change to the future land use map. As you can see, there is a strip of green line on the north side, and that would be reserved as an outlot for future public trail. I think that's what the planning and zoning's recommendation was.
Okay, and maybe I didn't understand. I see that, and I can appreciate that picture, but from the original,
Yep.
are we losing any feet of buffer between the lot that the person may develop and the dry run creek? Even if it's not consistent the whole time, is there any little bit of grass is it closer to that creek bed or waterway than it was in the original plan?
Yes, I'll let the developer answer,
Okay.
the representative answer. Thank you.
Just name and address, if you could,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, Nick Brewer, representing Panther Farms, Panther Builders, Cedar Falls. Actually, it's really a balancing of the greenway, and with the sheet drainage that occurs there, there's actually going to be a strip of grass all the way around that perimeter. You know, currently that's a field that's tilled and opened up, and with this development, particularly on one of the other slides, there's a detention area there and swales which drain into that, which is actually going to prevent that water from directly running off. And instead of an open tilled field parts of the year, it's actually going to have permanent vegetative cover. So we actually see this as a great improvement to the property. In addition to the detention requirements, we also provide for a stormwater quality volume, where we actually hold stormwater in the facility for a 24-hour period to allow contaminants to settle out, such that the water that's released from the detention facility is clean when it enters the streams of Cedar Falls downstream, Southwest Dry Run Creek in this case. So I hope that helps answer your question a little bit.
Thank you.
Where's this detention area at?
So up in the northwest corner there, that larger tract should stand out. It doesn't look like a lot. That's going to be the detention area, and there's also storm sewer and drainage swales, which will route to that to collect all the storm water in that basin.
Okay, so I appreciate that information. And I know that now there'll be permanent vegetation, although it's it's the grass that we probably isn't the greatest. But anyway, there's also going to be cement. So that, I understand what you're saying, and I'm not trying to be difficult or anything, but I guess then why the need for the change? I mean, I just want to make sure that any loss of green space or buffer, that is alarming to many residents. They've voiced that. And I guess, what's the need for the change? Is it just to make the lots bigger or more lots?
I don't know that it's a loss, but I can get back to you on that as far as exact numbers, but I look at it more as a rebalancing of that.
But I guess to put it simply, is there a loss, how when you go to a river and if you have natural vegetation, that gives a little more stability to that bank or catching things as it goes. I understand it's a basin, but if you take that away in some places or make it less of a depth, then there's a chance for more either physical things or contaminants of whatever to be able to get into that waterway. So I'm just wondering, I'm assuming there's a lot. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't be asking for it, right? There has to be more land given to the developer. And maybe I'm wrong, but otherwise I don't know why we're talking about it.
Well, if I may, Kelly, JD, can you clarify, because just from me looking at the map, I didn't perceive that there was a loss of the greenway. Are we reducing the greenway at all, or is?
Yes, we are reducing the greenway, but as Nick mentioned, I don't know how to, sorry, one sec. So as you can see, this north area here doesn't have any greenway area, but then you see it starts from here all the way here. So I think, yes, there will be a reduction of this patch to the small proposal that we are doing, but that will be throughout this whole northern edge. So yes, to answer, in fact, yes, there will be a reduction in the greenway, yes.
Mr. Mayor, And I apologize, and even if you can just, I would love to have a side-by-side of what it is now and what it's proposed to be. That's just.
I agree.
Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Cruz.
Can you tell me of this particular slide of the green area inside the black line, how much is that currently tilled cornfield? Because you kind of mentioned that some of this is tilled already currently?
Yeah, I would say it's tilled right up to the perimeter of the property like most farmers would do.
And the black line on the north side represents the current edge of the cornfield?
Correct, that would be the boundary.
So it seems that this is picking up more grassland.
Exactly.
Than what's currently there.
Correct.
It would be nice, like Councilor Dunn has said, to put side by side or on top of each other, superimpose them, to help with everybody's concerns. If we can do that for the next meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that there is a motion to postpone agenda item 5. I may be wrong, but I think there was a second at that time. Mr. Rogers can make sure I'm following the Roberts rules correctly, but what I would propose is a friendly amendment to that would be agenda items 5 and 6, since we were on 5, since they're tied together, which I think would require your withdrawal of the first motion and resubmitting the amended one.
Or you can just amend it.
Yeah, just amend it. Okay, that's my suggested amendment.
As we said, we like to hear Aaron talk.
Right.
We have a
We're
lawyer.
gonna get tired of that.
Yeah,
A
we
few
never get
lawyers.
tired.
I'll second that amendment.
So,
It's been motioned and seconded.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm fine with the postponement of this, but I do want to make note that P&Z did unanimously pass this, and we've already delayed this once with the previous body. So the fact that we're now 3 weeks until our next meeting, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we have a fifth week this month.
Really kicking the can down the road now a month and a half.
I would also wonder, what are we expecting to change? Is it just that we want to add some additional feet if they were removed? And then how is that, what's the delay in that? You know, if we then come back and say that at the next meeting, we deny it for the change, needs to go back to P&Z then, come back through again, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, I 100% hear what everyone is saying, and I completely agree, and I think we have talked about how this needs to be a priority for us. We've talked about how to the south of this area, we might be able to put a park in. I think that would be really good. I know that at the P&Z meeting, we brought up putting a trail through that green space, and there is space to do that there. I would just hesitate to delay this that much if it is just feet, a few feet. And I also think it is, again, it's a big improvement to go from a field to pretty much anything else. But, you know, so I think that's something we should consider as well. You know, just if it's something we want to keep in mind for the future, and we want to direct staff to, you know, be conscious of how much green space we're giving, and maybe we want to make some changes to our plans so that we can enforce that in the future, I think that's great. But for this one in particular, I'm just not sure what we can change right now.
And to provide a clarification, we will still be voting to approve the master plan, the plating and everything later. This is on the zoning. So there will be more steps in this process to review the overall layout.
But,
Mr. Mayor. Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
Can we go back to one of the previous depictions here that showed the lots? And there. So that triangular piece in the upper left, that's considerably bigger than the depicted green space. So is that all going to be green space? That is. So then going.
Detention, it'll be detention.
That's going to be, okay. And then we'll have a bike trail, walking trail on the north side of that, presumably, or around it, or what's?
Yes.
Because this looks like the best way to get an idea of what's going to happen.
It would be on the north side, not around it. It would be along the north.
Yeah, right on the red border on the north side, right somewhere there. This is where it'd be nice to have these superimposed on top of each other. But I think, to several points being made here, that I think we got this covered, don't we? Unless we come down to the lower left along the west edge, that one corner lot goes all the way to the red line. I don't see there'd be a green buffer there. Or either on the north side to the right of that dividing line there of some sort. Those lots go all the way to the edge of the property, but the other depiction showed green space, right? Am I?
Karen.
So this is a master plan level concept, and when we get to the plat, because the development agreement has a requirement in it that they provide a 20-foot outlot along the edge of their property, which would include the lots that you mentioned, Daryl, that are on the back side of those lots, the triangular shaped lots to the west, and it would extend all the way to Green Hill. The early plats that we've seen also show an outlot to be dedicated to the city right up against Green Hill as well. So I think then that'll allow the trail to be a 20-foot buffer along the entire edge of that, which would then be designated also as part of that greenway.
So when you say outlot, you're saying property owned or resident owned or city owned?
City owned. With the outlot, the intention would be then with the platting that outlot would be dedicated then to the city for a future trail.
Though it's not shown on here as a reduction in the depth of those upper lots.
JD, do we have an image of the master plan that shows that buffer? Okay.
I mean, like right here, we're showing
right.
No more burgundy. That was what, commercial? And now
Right.
it's green buffer. Well, is that the retention pond right there? Where it's right in the middle? Trying to describe it here.
That darker green?
That darker green and darker blue, is
that's
that the retention pond?
That's
So
the
there is
500
there is a pond there that's city owned.
Okay.
That's already a retention pond. And so all that green area that's outside the black area to the north is all city property.
I'm just puzzled because this depiction of the green area, or the, you lose my words here, greenway area doesn't match the other one I was looking at where it had that triangular area, and Mr. Gaines said there's going to be a retention pond. Wouldn't this one show that as well?
This is for the comprehensive plan map, so we don't show necessarily developments in the comp plan. It hasn't been developed yet, and we don't have a plat yet. So, but with the development agreement, we're trying to solidify what we're agreeing to, and in the development agreement, it talks about setting aside a 20-foot buffer along the northern edge of their property to be dedicated to the city for a future trail and a buffer area between that and the floodplain.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
if I may.
Councilmember Canfield.
I think the current motion on the floor is to amend this to include item 6, which I don't think it should. They should be handled separately. It's my druthers on that current motion on the floor. I appreciate the wide latitude on discussing this item and continuing to learn about this topic. I personally am not ready to vote on this item, and I think Mr. Rogers would agree with us that we have the privilege of gathering all the information that we need to be able to make a conscious vote. So I would say let's vote on the inclusion of item 6 and then move back to the vote on the continuance. I would also ask for clarification, Councilmember Latta. I don't think we saw this item before with a previous body. So I think you had mentioned that it had already been kicked down the road. I don't think we've seen this item before.
I believe we
What I think what he may be referring to is that staff had on the December meeting to set the public hearing and consider this item at the first meeting in January, and the council requested it be the second meeting in January.
That makes sense.
I'd just like to clarify where we are procedurally. So we're in the middle of the public hearing on the first item, number 5. So as I understand, the motion is to continue the public hearing so as to avoid the notice, publication, and all that again. So we're going to continue that, pick it up at a definite time next council meeting. And then I understood the amendment to be to postpone to a definite time consideration of the zoning, the rezoning in number 6. And that definite time would be next council meeting as well. Did I understand that correctly?
Correct.
That would be.
That's where I understood we were at.
Yeah. So
And so we have that, and we've already motioned and seconded, I believe.
So if council's ready to vote, it's voice
Are
vote.
we discussing the Second Amendment? That's
Right.
where we're at right now.
Right. So that second, that friendly amendment has not been approved yet.
No, we're debating that.
Right.
So
And
Mike,
to be clear, I'm just wanting to make sure I understand. In the middle of a hearing, we can make a motion on an other item that was not brought to the floor?
You,
They're connected.
I mean, they're subsequent, but they're not, it was not brought up as part of the hearing on item 5. So we would be also voting in the midst of the hearing on item 5 to postpone item 6 to a definite date.
well, council could do what it wishes, but, I mean, if you want to keep it perfectly straight, you ought to be continuing the hearing first. But it follows that the other item has to move then, right?
I think my thoughts would be withdraw the motion to postpone and take that up after we vote on continuing the hearing.
So you just want to do them as 2 separate actions?
What? I'm so confused.
So really quick to recap, so
Same.
number 6 is
Continue the hearing.
number 6 is dependent on number 5.
Exactly.
And so right now, we've got them combined to just vote them on at the same time.
We don't. That's the pending action right now.
that's the,
Is
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying,
debate.
is we've got on the floor to look at combining them to postpone or continue the public hearing and postpone the discussion of number 6. If I'm correct, that's the current amended,
Mr.
the motion for amendment.
So if, it's kind of like dominoes, if we postpone 5, 6 goes automatically. We don't really have to debate it or discuss it, right?
I
So
believe we still
we don't
need-
need an amendment. Am I right?
I believe we will still need to make a motion
I mean-
to postpone that conversation, since it's on our
The
agenda.
amendment to amend friendly,
Aren't we voting to continue the public hearing?
the
well, we had an amendment.
The current motion on the floor, as Mr. Rogers stated as well, is to postpone item 6 to subsequent business on the next council meeting. Then we move back to vote on the continuance.
No, no, that's not.
And hold on, I'll, point of order here. So Kevin, if we can clarify, I believe right now we have a friendly amendment to include postponing
6.
number 6 as to an indefinite period at a future date.
Definite period,
Yep,
the
to a
next
definite-
council meeting.
At the next council meeting, as a part of also the resolution or the wanting to continue the public hearing for number 5.
Right, and usually I'd be right there with Councilmember Ganfield, but since they're so tied together, the one depends upon the other. The other way to do is continue the hearing, and then the mayor says by consensus, we'll take this off the agenda for tonight. But
Yep.
you can do it however you wish.
And so just, we've got a pending vote there that would essentially combine these as one motion, and then we will vote on that separately. So we've got a motion and a second to make the amendment to combine these two. And then, so can we have a voice vote for that? All in favor?
Say
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, and now we have a vote to look at continuing the public hearing for this item, for item 5, and then also delaying or pushing the item 6 to the next council date.
Goes with it as a domino.
And so we have that motion seconded,
That's what he said.
and so all voting in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Nay.
So,
Okay.
so just for the clerk's help, what
We get a show
what
of
were the
hands, please.
ayes and nays on that vote?
Ayes.
Ayes.
And
So
And then
ayes. And then
nays?
Opposed? 2 nays. No, that motion carries then, 5-2. So we will not be discussing item 6 then. That will be postponed to the next council meeting. Thank you, Judy, Karen, for the. So we will move on to item number 7, public hearing on the proposed plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2024 CDBG sanitary sewer rehabilitation project. We have a motion to receive and file proof of publication.
So moved. Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And Madam Clerk, any written communications?
I
on
have
file?
no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And staff comments. I believe we have a few staff comments on this. Thank you, Tyler.
Who was up last? Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight's public hearing is for the 2024 CDBG Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project. This project consists of installing a cured-in-place liner in 2,873 feet of existing 8-inch sanitary sewer mains, followed by the reinstallation of 66 service connections. These sewer mains were located within the approved low and moderate income areas of Cedar Falls and have been selected based on pipe condition and age. The estimated cost of this project is $141,109 and will be funded by a community development block grant. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council, open up to any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
I'd just
Ganfield?
love to get clarification. How long is the typical warranty on these lined pipes?
So there's not a warranty on the pipes themselves, but the project does have a 2-year maintenance bond as all other construction projects in town.
Okay. What's the anticipated life cycle after we line these pipes? How much more use can we get out of these?
I believe the ASTM standard is 50 years life expectancy.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Cruz?
So when we choose sewer lines to line, are we taking into consideration the replacement plan or rebuild of the streets above? Because when we redo the street, we replace the sewer. And if these have a life expectancy of 50 years, let's say it's 20 years, 25. Are we choosing wisely where to spend money to line the sewers so that we don't rip them out in 3 to 5 years when we rip out a street?
We do work with engineering on what is on their pavement management plan, yes. And a lot of times, like these are just 8-inch lines, so they're a little bit smaller and in less traveled roads, so we will have these lined and we can probably get by for 50 years without having to replace that. So if the construction project would come up, we could leave it as is with a liner in it and not have to replace it.
Okay. Then from previous council meetings, I recall we expect our repaving program for the streets to last 20 years. That's our life expectancy of a paved street.
That's not the life expectancy. It depends on the material, but concrete has a life expectancy of 30 years, and then we'll have an overlay program.
Oh,
after that.
okay, for another 10, typically the overlays at
10 to 20 depends on the volume of traffic, and yep.
What the substrate's doing and okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other council comments? Questions, I should say. All right, thank you, Tyler.
Thanks.
We'll now open up to public comments, if anybody would like to comment on this item. And seeing none, we will close the hearing. And we'll move to resolution approving and adopting the plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2024 CDBG sanitary sewer rehabilitation project. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
And all in favor, say aye.
Oh,
Aye.
Roll.
this is a
Sorry, roll call vote, excuse me. Roll call vote.
Am I not doing it? Oh.
No, I was joking.
Okay.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That passes. We will now move to the consent calendar. The following items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Are there any requests for items of the consent calendar to be considered separately, council and/or the public? All right, in that case, we will move on then to, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion to approve.
Seconded?
Second.
And all in, this is voice vote, correct? Yes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to the resolution calendar. The following items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone on the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Are there any requests for items on the resolution calendar to be considered separately? Council or the public? All right, and then do we have a motion to approve the resolution calendar?
Motion to approve resolution calendar.
Did you ask for the public?
Yes. I
Okay,
did.
sorry.
Thank you for double checking. It's probably just safer at this point. And so we have a motion, so we will move on to roll call vote.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we will now move on to ordinances, looking to pass an ordinance imposing the 1 cent per cent local sales tax and services tax within the city of Cedar Falls and allocating the revenue derived therefrom upon its first consideration. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
And seconded, and we require a roll call vote.
Mine is still saying,
Did you break it again?
I don't know. Mine still says resolution calendar and it's kind of blacked out, but I vote yes.
Can we record that?
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And then we'll move into bills and claims. So we have a motion to allow bills and claims for January
So
16th,
moved.
2024.
Second.
And roll call vote.
Mine's dead. I vote yes.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we'll move on to council updates and announcements. Does any council have any updates or announcements they would like to make?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm just hoping to seek some clarification. I don't know if this needs to come from Mr. Gaines or Director Birdie, given the events that occurred in Perry and this council's commitment to budgeting for an additional SRO in our next fiscal year, where we're at in that process, and is there anything we can do to expedite that so that potentially we could have somebody up and ready to go by the time at least next school year starts?
Ron, if you'd like to.
I'll start and then have Craig jump in if I forget or leave anything out. Right now, we're in talks with the school district about getting an SRO and with the Cedar Falls School District. And Craig has recently been in talks with Parochial School about some, just inquiring about some SRO duties as well. That's what you'll be talking about here coming up with the budget. So that'll be an authorized position that you have to allow in the budget. And what our timing is right now is having somebody available coming up for the fall of 24 school year. So, Director Birdie.
Yeah, I would just, the only thing I would add to that is that, yeah, we'll have a hiring list here real soon, but our second SRO would be somebody that we envision in the summertime. We'd work with the school district to select another SRO, and that they'd start their duties in the fall of 24. And that is, of course, just like Mr. Gaines said, there's a budget impact on that we'll be discussing here in a few months. So,
thank you.
Any other council updates? Otherwise, I'll give a quick, Councilmember Dunn, the event we're going to, the Iowa League of Cities training. I know a couple of us have signed up. Kim will be sending out just information for whoever else would like to sign up. We'll have that coming up. Do you remember the date off the top of your head? March 6th. Yep. So I know for sure Kelly and I will be going down, so if anybody else would like to come, we'll get information sent out. And that is something the city will cover for having us go down, so. Okay, otherwise, we'll move to council referrals. Does anybody have any council referrals for tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to executive session. So executive session, we'll be moving to executive session to discuss property acquisitions per Iowa Code 21.51J. to discuss the purchase or sale of particular real estate only where premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price the governmental body would have to pay for that property or reduce the price the governmental body would receive for that property. And we will also be discussing the city administrator's performance pursuant to Iowa Code Section 21.51I and the City Code Section 2-217. And this is something we will be coming back after the executive session to adjourn, but no further discussions will be had on any other topics, so you're welcome to stay around if you'd like. Otherwise, do we have a motion?
moved.
And second?
Second.
And a roll call vote to go to executive session.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, and thank you everyone coming out, and we'll be back in a little bit.